What if addiction isn't the problem? What if it's the scar? We live in a world that traumatizes people and then shames them for bleeding. A world that says, be strong, be productive, move on, don't cry, but never asks what it costs you to survive. Addiction is not indulgence, it is anesthesia. It is what happens when a nervous system, the body, has been on high alert for so long that silence feels dangerous. It is a body that never came down from survival, a brain wired for threat, a child who learned that relief, any relief, was better than feeling everything at once. So you found something, a substance, a screen, a person, work, control, chaos, not because you're weak, but because your system was drowning. And here's the part that's uncomfortable. If we only attack the addiction, we participate in the violence. Because we're trying to rip away the only thing that kept someone afloat without asking what they were thrown into. Addiction is not the enemy, it's a signal flare. It says, something inside me is still in survival. Something inside me never felt safe. Something inside me is still carrying what no one helped me process. You don't heal by cutting off the coping mechanism. You heal by meeting the wounds that made it necessary. And that's darker work, that's shadow work, because it means looking at the neglect, the chaos, the silence, the hypervigilance, the abuse, everything that became your personality. It means admitting that what you call a bad habit was once the only reason you made it through. Healing isn't about willpower. It's about having the courage to descend into what created the addiction and choosing to build safety where there never was any. That's not self help, that's reconstruction. And that's so important to know. In my country, most institutions will tell you first solve the addiction and then we'll treat the mental health. But how honest is that towards the person who came seeking for help? How fair is it to demand sobriety from someone who was never taught how to feel or how to regulate or process their emotions? How realistic is it to remove someone's coping mechanism before they even understand why it exists? Then, if you're asking me, that's setting someone up for failure because you're removing the only thing that someone helped make it go through life. And even though at that point it's maybe more dangerous to them than anything else, it still has a function. There's still a reason behind the addiction. You're asking a body to let go of the only thing that ever regulated it without offering safety in return. That's not treatment, that's withdrawal without understanding. Addiction is often the only tool someone had in the middle of despair. It's not pretty, it is not sustainable, but it's a tool and it's always there, even though you sometimes have to do things for it that are morally against your character. It's still always there. And if we refuse to acknowledge that, we keep misunderstanding the human being behind the behavior. For me, addiction started long before the behavior. I came into this world with an open heart and without protection. The world can be brutal, brutal to sensitive people, especially if you're not having any guards or walls that protect you because the predators are going to see they are recognizing. I felt everything. Everyone's moods, everyone's responsibility, everyone's chaos, and on top of that, the traumas that I went through. As a child, I carried weight that was never mine to carry. Hyper awareness became my baseline. Responsibility became my identity, and coping mechanisms became my survival. And trauma doesn't just happen once, it happens continuously, collectively, individually, in subtle ways, in silent ways. The world keeps moving, the nervous system keeps recording, it keeps going. So, yes, addiction becomes a relief. Addiction becomes a relief of the daily pressure that you're under. Not because someone is broken, but because they were overwhelmed for too long without protection. You cannot ask someone to drop their armor before you teach them how to feel safe without it. That is the conversation we're not having, and that is where real healing begins. Addiction was never the villain, it is the evidence. Evidence of a nervous system that did what it had to do. Evidence of a child who survived without. I'm sorry, I get emotional. Um, Evidence of a child who survived without protection. Evidence of a body that carried too much for too long. So I think instead of asking people to drop their coping mechanisms, we need to ask them, what do you need as a replacement in order to feel safe enough in yourself? We need to stop calling survival a disorder, because addiction is a response to pain. And the real question isn't what can we do in order to stop the addiction? The real question is, what are we refusing to look at that needs healing? Until we're willing to confront the root of the problem, personally and collectively, we will keep treating symptoms and calling that healing. But that's not recovery, that's avoidance. I can recognize that this subject is becoming a little bit dark. However, I would like to say that I think that it's very important to speak about subjects that people not often talk about. I have a different point of view on recovery, and this is my opinion. And if you would like to share your opinion, then you can comment down below, because I'm very curious. And no, I read everything and I always react. The person who I was when I coped with substance abuse, I don't hate that version of me. She kept me alive. She carried responsibility that wasn't hers. She felt a world that was too loud. She survived in the only ways she knew how. Addiction was never my identity. It was my relief. And today I don't fight her, I thank her. And then I built something stronger, not from shame, but from understanding. Because healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about finally becoming safe enough to live without needing to escape it. And finally, for everyone who can recognize themselves in feeling feeling the weight of the world and the responsibility, and who feels like everything that they do isn't good enough, know that I see you. I see your pain. I see the scars this world left on you. I see the exhaustion of fighting something that feels bigger than you. But please hear me clearly. Your addiction is not who you are. Your trauma is not that makes you you, even if it feels that way right now. You are not your past. You are not what lacked. You are not the chaos that you survived. You are an incredibly powerful and sensitive human being who was pushed down a path you didn't consciously choose. And yes, that path shaped you, but it does not define you. Your past explains you, it does not imprison you. Healing is not about suddenly being 10 years clean. It's not about perfection. It's not about performing recovery for the world. It begins with something much quieter, a decision, a resolute, stubborn decision that says, I want better for myself, and in any way, I don't care how, I'm going to achieve that. Not tomorrow, not when I'm perfect. Now, this instant. Because control over your future doesn't start with grand milestones. It starts with one moment where you choose yourself instead of the wound. And that choice, that single grounded choice, is so much more powerful than any label you've ever been given. You are not broken. You were forced to adapt. Now you get to rebuild. If this content resonates with you, if you like what I do, if you like to support me, then please like this video so that I know that people like to listen to this type of content, subscribe on my channel so that you never miss a new video. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Next Frequency, and remember, frequency is power. Bye!